All
I
right,
got
no salutes allowed. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for joining us. Excited to get this episode going. As you all know, we're generally talking to people who built something. They did it their own way. They've got interesting stories. They've got interesting perspective. So that leads us to our guest today, Jason Mickool, my guy. Him and I go back a long ways. There he is to old school Boston Amex before Ameriprise. So Jay, thanks for joining us, man.
Hey man, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I will introduce you as entrepreneur
All right.
before anything else.
Yeah, that's fair.
You know, financial services beast, I might throw in there,
Okay.
but obviously you've spent your career since like 95, correct me if I'm wrong,
Yeah.
in this business. Started with so you started with IDS.
I was. Yeah, IDS. Yeah, IDS when I went on board. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Started as an advisor, then but really spent the bulk of your time in management leadership at whatever capacity. So I'm going to do some fast forward and some rewind. So you built your current firm,
Yeah.
right? But it started as Florida Financial Advisors about 8 years ago. It was a scratch build.
Correct.
Where are you today? How many financial advisors do you have at your firm?
Well, it depends on the day, right? You know.
Yeah.
Right now, last I saw, we were at 575.
wow.
Okay. So
Yeah.
in 8 years, 575 advisors. And what kind of production top line is coming out of that?
We do. We're pacing right now for 73 million.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Amazing. Amazing. So let's go all the way back to when you kicked this thing off. And then I'm going to go even further back as a preamble, because if you go Ameriprise, you go IDS, which becomes Amex, which becomes Ameriprise, you ride that whole wave.
Correct.
Then you've got some time at New England and then the whole an ING, which is now Cetera. Like you saw a number of different firms, BDs, and you had success at different ones, but you didn't stay, right?
No.
So what did you see in all these other firms, call it in the management style or working for a big company or all that? What did you see that didn't work for you or that was broken in your opinion or that just didn't work?
You know, I think it's a culture fit. It's just fun fact for you. I've been fired from every job I've ever had. So what do they say? Invention is necessity is the mother of all invention, right? And I've never really fit into a corporate box, if you will. And I used to think it was my problem. They would, I had edges, as Brian Heath used to say, "Mickool, you have edges," and he wanted to. What we need to do is we don't want to get rid of your edges, but we want to make them dull, so you don't cut. I've always been a very competitive person that wanted to win. I hate losing. And I was very good at my job. You know that, Martin, for a number of years. There was a scorecard to win. I won it. But the way I won it, being a little abrasive and from Boston, didn't really rub well in corporate environment. So I really tried to be what they wanted me to be as a corporate executive. I thought I'd be the CEO of Ameriprise, at one point. I wanted to be a VP and a GVP. And I realized that, as Zeppos used to tell us, loved, hated, never ignored, right? The problem
Yep.
is people that hate you, once they get it in their mind, they want to get rid of you. I've always had a new idea or always wanted to do more. I felt like I had the capacity to do more, and I would either reorg out because my wanting and desire to do capacity, and not wanting to do just what was in front of me, led me to ultimately start my own firm, which the story, but I didn't have any other choice at that point. So was I going to go chase another $300,000 to $500,000 a year job, be very unhappy and try to play somebody that I'm not on TV, or was I going to do it myself and see what happens and see what I was capable of? And that was sort of the defining moment of just saying, you know what? I've been offered scratch operations, or I could have done this many, many years ago. I just feared the confidence, I think, a little bit, because they sort of convince you that they're stronger than you and you need them. And the reality is It's the opposite if you're the right type of individual.
Jason, what was it? What you said, some it was kind of out of necessity, but was the confidence developed that you needed to go independent and out of necessity that it developed, or was it something that you finally just had to say, "Hey, I'm going to do this, and I may not believe I can do it," and slowly prove it to yourself over time?
I think hindsight's 2020. What I found is that it's just building blocks. There were Jenga blocks of things that kind of came together that I needed in order to start my own firm. As an OSJ principal, I had been through FINRA audits and depositions and bad compliance people at corporate, which actually made me stronger. I didn't realize that at the time, but that made me stronger. um, at Ameriprise, they didn't give you P&L responsibility. So when I went to New England Financial, they gave me P&L responsibility. So I had a P&L that I had to manage and run, and that meant making decisions with hiring and infrastructure and staff and turning a profit. And then over at the RIA, that I won't use their name just because I don't know if it's kosher to do. We had been through sort of a transition to go from an IBD space to an RIA space, and I also had relationships that I built with IMOs at a high level, which gave me contract negotiation. I've always been a really good recruiter and a marketer. That was just that, those were table stakes that I learned in the beginning. Larry Post and
Yeah.
Marty, load the pipe. It was just all about recruiting. So we were always really, really. I personally was always very good at building infrastructure and processes around that. But I needed the P&L. I needed the experience in compliance. I needed the ability to negotiate contracts and know what those contracts should pay and would pay. And then that led to the necessity was like, all right, we can pull all this together and start what is FFA today. Um, and it's done okay.
So yeah. Well, yeah, it's done better than okay, but, um, take us to year 1, right? I think that's one of the most interesting parts of this story is so, like you said, you had these different experiences, you've got building blocks now,
Right.
so you're like, you're confident, but I get it. You're like, still a huge leap to like it's gonna be all your dime, and it's gonna be all your risk.
Well,
So tell us about year 1. Like, when you were how did you start year 1? What was your focus in those first 12 months? How would you measure that as a failure or a success? And how much runway were you giving yourself too? I think that's interesting. Like, were you saying like, I've got X to lose and then I'm out? Or was it more about a time thing? Or like, how did you approach all that?
I'm going to take one step back, Martin, if you're all right with that.
Yeah.
And this is a funny story. I can swear on this, right? I
Oh
could
yeah.
do.
100%. Yeah.
Encouraged.
This is my podcast. I'll
Oh, I
swear.
know what story you're going to tell. This is a great one. Yeah.
So, my now wife, who I love dearly, and Martin knows her. We've been together for many, many, many years, and and if you know her, my friends, just to give you context, my best friend growing up used to say, "Hey, where's your mute?" Right? Because she wouldn't speak. If you could think of like the opposite of me, a kind uh, individual that not no conflict in life. She's just a good person. In my rock, right? She's my ride or die. And I had been going through it my last reorg before we started FFA, and we were in Lincoln Park, Chicago. We live in downtown Chicago. We're at a place called J Parker, and we're on the roof. We just talked about this the other day. We've been drinking all day, so we like to drink together. And I'm just basically lost in life a little bit, right? I'm kind of defeated. I'm like, I'm never going to be the CEO. I'm never, I was going to go be a wholesaler. What a terrible gig that is. I'm like, oh my God. And, I'm just talking about my next move and what we're going to do. And I see this look come over her face, almost like I've never seen that look before. I know my wife, we've been together so long, and I go, honey, what's wrong? And she kind of goes, if I can be candid and, I love you and respect you, and, but you're just being a pussy. And literally, you have those times in your life when you just get punched right in the face and you're just like, what? I, more? And she said, to be honest, if I can she's like, just do it yourself. Like, what is wrong with you? And she said, I don't care. Like, let's just go do it yourself. And if it fails, we'll move to the Caribbean island and we'll bartend. It doesn't matter. Like all the stuff that we had in our lives, like didn't really matter. What mattered to her was my happiness. And in her mind, she believed in me candidly more than I believed in myself. I just thought, hey, it's kind of cool. You think you make 500 grand or 700 grand or whatever. You're like, you're on top of the world and it's a lot of money.
Okay.
And those doors had shut and that set off a series
Plus,
of domino effect type of things where it was like, you know what, you're right. And so we were trying to figure out, I thought to myself, if I couldn't do it in Chicago because of my contractual obligations. We used to run an office in St. Pete and we used to come down and visit in February and be like, why are we going back to Chicago? Like, what does this really offer right now? It's sunny and beautiful and the weather's nice. So we flew down. We decided we're going to move to Tampa. In my mind, I was like, there's a gentleman that we are good friends with named Jamie Frazone. He ran Tampa and Ameriprise for a number of years, and he's a really talented guy. I think I'm more talented. And if Jamie, if you ever see that, you probably would argue that. But we're,
Upcoming guest, maybe.
we're coming. We're both pretty competitive guys, and we've always respected each other. I think of him as a dear friend, and he had 40 guys, and I was like, how long would it take me to get 40 guys to produce? And if I did, I think if I get 40 guys, if you get 40 guys, I get 40 guys. And how much would I make if I had 40 guys? I figure 900,000 a year. Well, and that set that thing off into motion, and we started the office, and the first year. Now we bring it fast forward, and that we affiliated with an IBD, which I thought was a good move. I opened my own RIA. We opened our own insurance agency, and anytime you're affiliated with an IBD, it's a mistake. It's just a mistake, and I can share with you all the reasons. So year number one, I never wanted to be a practitioner, and I think that's a mistake that people make in the organization. I still see people that write 10 million in GDC and 15 million in GDC, and they're actually literally meeting with clients, talking about their cats and dogs, and I'm thinking, wow, that sucks. What life. And then, I call it the law of the lid, which basically, you're in a pot, you only know what you know, and you think you're a big deal, right? So you're like, oh, look, I make 6 million a year, but you're still shaking hands and kissing babies. And I never wanted to do that. I just wanted to replicate the job that I always had, which I loved, which is running a business and being a leader. I never wanted to actually be a practitioner. So I think that mindset is very different when you go into it as an entrepreneur. There's a guy, you guys, was it James Clear or something? And he says, when you're an entrepreneur, you don't talk about your widget. You talk about how you're going to recruit and onboard and offboard and train people and hold them accountable, and how you're going to build leaders and you're going to grow the organization. So my first hire was a guy by the name of Hans St. Pierre. So if you can imagine what you would envision Hans St. Pierre to look like,
yeah.
what would you envision Hans St. Pierre?
I'm going blonde hair, an accent.
See, I'm going like Haitian, like tall black Haitian.
Oh,
He was a tall black Haitian, and I had no idea.
nice
Let's
call.
go. Let's go.
Nice call, EG. All right, nice call. Okay. I'll
He
step
was
away.
awesome. He was awesome. Nice kid. He was from USF. I had never met him, and I flew him to Chicago on this startup, like you said, Eric. And he shows up, and I thought what Martin was thinking, and he has got a Patriots hoodie on, and I'm like, holy shit, I hired the wrong kid, and because I just pictured something completely different. I figured he'd know if I flying him to Chicago, he should have a suit on, but he didn't. Come to find out, the guy was awesome, and I hired him to be a recruiter. So my first hire that I paid $35,000 a year for at the time, I always say I couldn't afford it. I could afford it. I had a bunch of money saved at that point, a bunch being relatively speaking. But cash flow wise, we were going to bleed cash. And then my second hire, which came down from me with Chicago, was just a guy that I know named Juni Delgado. He was going to be my sales manager, right? So it was me, the sales manager, the recruiter. We would go in, it'd be three of us in a co-working space, and I would listen to his phone calls, and I'd tell him, call this person, do that, da 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 da. And it would be and that time we met face to face. We would, he would we would post a job, the interview would come in, he'd set the job, I would do a career preview. The manager would do the first interview, then I would have him come in and do the final interview. And that seemed like a big operation, but it was all in one office, so we kind of share an office. And it was like you said, the start of days, Eric, when we started this, or you romanticize the past. I don't want to say I romanticized the past. It was fun. It was a means to an end. It was hard. I worked a lot of hours. I came in early. I stayed late. It never stopped, right? But overall, it was really worth it.
So that first year, Jay,
Yeah, man.
what was your goal? You wanted to hire how many people? You wanted to make did you know, like, I'm gonna lose money year 1, year
Yeah.
2? Like, how were you thinking about those things?
Honestly, it's weird. I just I don't think I didn't have a goal of. I know I wanted to get 15 people. That was sort of my objective. I just needed bodies in there for people to lead because that's what I do well, right? I was going to. I didn't think of how much. I just wanted to be profitable as soon as possible, and that was just so I could stop bleeding cash flow. We had a unique opportunity. We when we moved to Florida, we rented our. You've been to my house in Chicago. It's huge. To Otto Porter, and he always paid his rent, which is nice. And I made like 6 or 7 grand a month, which paid for our house down here, which was also beautiful. So it was just bleeding. I just wanted to be profitable. I figured we end up with 15, and I was like, by year 2, I wanted to make 250. I figured if I could make 250, 300 grand a year, I could replace my income, and then see what happens. So we just ran at the 15 number. So we basically March of 2017. I went in the hole about 80 grand. Is what the loss was. I turned a profit in September. So from March to September we had zero. September we turned a profit, and then I have never written a check back to the business ever again.
Wow.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
which
That's
is pretty.
awesome.
Yeah, so if you look, I mean, that's amazing, dude. So if you look back at that, is there anything you would do different? Because I mean, that's a fast start.
No, I would tell people what we did was all the learnings of the stupid shit that people do, as entrepreneurs. They go get a big office space, they go buy furniture, they think if they have like a cool looking thing. And that model that we still use today when we open a new organization. We put them in temp space. We always find subleases with free furniture. We sign short-term deals, not long-term deals. We minimize our cash flow, and we focus on production. I don't think most people think of it that way. They're like, oh, if I get this big, beautiful office, I need this desk and this conference room table and all this stupid stuff that doesn't actually sell. When they waste their money on marketing that doesn't actually give them the result that they want immediately. They're making massive investments in marketing, and hoping that pays off. We did it the old-fashioned way. We bought leads from Zoom Info, and I just got everybody in there, and I sit there and pound the phones, and then that's tough. I was on the road, from 7:30 in the morning, sometimes till 10 o'clock at night. You know, driving all over God's creation, meeting at Starbucks or kitchen tables at the time, and I thought, you know, I don't want to do this for long. I don't want to. I don't want to do this forever, But that was important because I was good at sales. I'm good with people for the most part. Sometimes when I want to be, uh, and I knew the products and I knew financial planning. That was easy. But I really wanted quickly to get out of that business fast. which means that the people that I hired, I said, I'm going to make you famous. You're going to be my manager. You're going to be my leader. And in order to do that, I need you to role play and practice. We spent a lot of time in quadrant 2 activities. When I was not on a meeting, we were in class, we were doing role plays, we were teaching, we were recording, we were making them watch that stuff over and over again. And I was very insistent that they actually could become self-sufficient quick. So, year number 2, so full calendar year 2, I crossed 7 figures, which is kind of crazy to think. We went from breaking even in 8 months to, by 2018, in the year 2018, I made 7 figures.
In
It's huge.
year 2, you said, you brought up Hans, you brought up the sales manager you brought down from Chicago. Was there a key hire in year 2 that really propelled you into the 7-figure earnings, or was it just continuing to stick to the process, continuing to stick to the mold? Was there some trigger that really set you off?
Yeah, recruiting set me off, right? So by the time I went into year 2, I think we finished in the year 2018 with like 27 financial advisors. And one of the things that people in our industry don't get, which is baffles me, they think their value prop is on payout. So it's like, what's my payout? What's my payout? What's my payout? It's completely stupid. The other thing that people do, which is really stupid, is they want to share what they have. They want to share their deal, right? What I did very differently was I protected the economics of the business. And what I did is I created a model from an economics perspective that I was going to protect the margins and the economics of the business always. And I was going to, what I call pricing my value correctly, which means that I always wanted to make a, 50% margin on the business. So if I was doing 2 million in GDC, I wanted to make $1 million. Everybody else, and all expenses had to be paid for me to make that $1 million. So the way we pay people is more of like a wirehouse model, because we recruit, train them, and develop them, which gives me a margin to pay my expenses lean and make a margin on the business. I didn't realize, again, things you learn and you put together over time. I had seen other people do that. I call it the Steve Levy plan. That was a gentleman that I met at New England Financial, an older guy that was making $4 or $5 million a year and had a nice life. And that was what he did. And I said, oh my God, that's brilliant. Like, that's amazing. And I met him, weirdly enough, at Blair Country Club. He's a member. He's from,
Oh, is he?
yeah, randomly. I go, are you Steve Levy? And I give you a hug because you've made me a very rich man, wealthier than him by a long shot, using his same system.
Yeah.
And that worked out pretty well. So in year 2, I cracked that 7-figure mark. And then, the rest is history.
So what's interesting, and E, I know you had a lot of touch points with like inexperienced recruiting too. It's so different, Jay, even now than when I started, say in 2001, when you started, certainly, like the number of firms that want to invest in it, the number of firms that are going to actually do anything that resembles training, other than like, we'll hire you all commission, and if you stick, you stick kind of thing, right? It's just so different. So to your point about the way you were looking at it was, well, I'll protect the business economics, but I will give them a lot of training. Like
Yes.
you sounds like you went old school, what we call P1, right? Like you were holding their hand, you had managers in there covering meetings, closing the business for them. So at the end of the day, you're giving all these people an actual fighting chance to make it to year 2 or 3 as a practitioner, which we all know the fallout rates. We all know the, who sticks, who doesn't stick. But case in point, the value can be, and I'll give you, I talked to a guy, well, I guess I can't say his name because I'm going to say the income, but I talked to a guy you would know from the early my office in Braintree, who just kind of hung in there, and I helped him a lot. I helped him stick in there, and well, fast forward, he's 1.6 million solo independent practitioner just by sticking around. I mean, and I'm not saying that in a negative way, because he deserves it, but like literally we dragged him over the line years 1, 2, 3, and he's hung out and he's just kept doing it, and good for him. But to circle it back to what you're doing, I mean, you're kind of given that entryway to get a chance to do that, right? To build it out and stick. Because we all know if you can make it past year 3 as a practitioner, your odds are
Like
80% probably. Yeah.
93%, 89 to 93%, depending on the study you look. If you make it past year 3, you're gonna make it. I think
Yeah.
it's
So
I
I
think
would think it's something completely different than that, right? I'm like, shame on that kid for being. I know what we were talking about, and I would never want to do what you guys do because people think they're good and they're like, oh, I make, uh, you know, uh, I make 5 million a year, and I'm like, you're a loser. And that's like I don't want to I don't want to be brass about that, but I met with a guy that we would know. I think he's top 5 at Ameriprise, right? And I have a conversation with him, and he's been doing it for 30 years, right? Um, and I do 5 times his revenue 8 years in, and he could do in 30 years. And I haven't met a client in 6 years, and I have the best possible life you could possibly imagine. What's the difference between him and I? He's way smarter. He didn't drop out of college. He wasn't a weed smoking kid growing up. This is like the pedigree. His problem is his own lid, right? It's the way he sees the world. And I don't, everybody goes, well, I don't want to work as hard as you. I'm like, well, you think I work hard? Like, what's wrong with you? Like, I work a tenth of what you work, and I make 20 times the amount of money that you make. And the reason is because their capability, their lid, right? Their vision of what they are capable of. And the worst part is everybody's capable. I'm not the smartest guy. I'm not the hardest working guy. I'm not the best looking guy. I can't play golf. I don't do any of those things. But what I can do is recruit, train, and develop people. And I have a mindset that said, I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to build a massive business. And it wasn't always that way. I just wanted to get 20 people. But now, today, I'm like, I'm going to have 2,000 financial advisors. There's no question in my mind. And I'm not going to sacrifice the economics of the business. So
Yeah.
I would tell you in 3 years, we'll probably do 100 million in EBITDA, which is like, that's a business.
Yeah.
That's a real business. I mean, I don't think there's anybody, I don't find somebody on the call. You guys find somebody else in financial services that can do what we've done. I challenge you. You've actually met one. Do you know who it is, Marty? Who's the richest guy you know in financial services besides me?
Tick tock, tick tock.
Firm owner?
Call it whatever you want.
I don't know.
How about you, Eric?
I'm like racking my brain, and I'm like the ones I can think of would be like your LPL OSJ guys, but maybe, but they don't even come close. Yeah,
Close. Not even close.
maybe like I was thinking maybe who's the guy that got pushed out of Sanctuary and is at Elevation Point now? I'm gonna forget his name, but that's a large RIA. I don't know, man. I mean, what you did in 8 years is stupid.
Marty, what do you
I can't think because my brain goes to none of those corporate guys would even be close. Doesn't matter the tenure, the stock, all that. That's not
Maybe
even.
like Marshall Leeds did really well on the Finite exit, and the Summit has Summit and did sold part of that to Cetera. I don't know. You probably know Marshall, Jason, just from Ginstar stuff. No.
No. I'll tell you who it is. It's John Hance. Come on, Marty.
Oh, I remember him.
Oh, John Hance.
We took that flight to Detroit.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah. So
Yeah.
John Hance is probably the richest guy that I ever met in financial services. I'm guessing it's $1 billion at this point. He sold his mortgage company in 2018, the bank portion of the mortgage company itself for 200 million. A guy flies around in the Challenger 600 and,
Yeah.
makes
Yeah, I
probably
love it.
90 million a year on that business. I don't know that to be factual, but he's the largest. He also owns a property casualty. He's the largest distributor of property casualty for citizens in the country. And he
That's
owns
huge.
it 100%. Um, learned a lot. And we didn't go with him. Marty and I went there, and we were gonna basically build a franchise.
We're gonna build our own thing. Yeah. Yep.
Man,
I remember that.
did they screw up?
What year was that? What year was that? What year were you guys flying around looking at property and casualty
So that's
franchise?
right as I resigned from
2007.
Ameriprise. I moved back to Boston.
Okay.
Um, and we were talking about maybe starting something like that.
What held you guys back in that situation?
Capital, right? So I was the lead guy in doing that. And what I wanted, and in hindsight, I was like stupid kid. I thought I had it all figured out at 32 years old. Man. Like I knew nothing. I like 0, 0, 0. But if you ask me, I had it all figured out. So I had done a huge business plan. I had all field leaders that I know would have followed me. Seth Waltz, Marty, Mike McAdam. Like we had all these guys all over the place that we just had relationships with that all would have left, and we would have went on together to build something amazing. I went to Securian, Mass Mutual,
Okay.
ING, and I wanted $3 million to start the business. And I had a big business plan and presented their boards. And I kind of thought Securian was going to do it, and they didn't do it. And then Hans wanted to do it, but he I don't know if you remember this. He said, "You can't drive a fancy car; you can only drive an American car." And I was like, "This is whacked." The other thing I tell you, one of the biggest learnings I probably had as an entrepreneur in hindsight was from Hans. And I remember, we smoke cigars in his office. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Guy
It
is
stunk.
so unique. He's such a unique dude. You want to get somebody on a pod. I don't know if he would do it, but he's one of the most unique, smartest humans ever. I'm not that person, right?
He's everything I'm not. Got it.
He's smart, he's hardworking, all those things that I'm not. But I remember asking him, I said to him, I said, and this is a mistake that everybody makes. And he said, if you had to do it all over again, one mistake you made, and this Marty, you kind of asked me this, right? What mistake did you make? And I remember him sitting there, he used to talk like this, man. He's go, yeah, I don't remember that. Marty used to do a great impression of it. And John, if you ever see this, man, I have deep respect for you, and I appreciate this, and I've taken this to the bank. And if I could hug you, I would right now. He said, if I had to do it all over again, Jason, in 1995, he ended up getting fired from American Express at the same time. And he took 140 people with him, and they started this company. And at the time, he said he gave them stock in the company. And I said, if I had to do it all over again, he said, I would have never given anybody any equity for just doing the work that they would have done anyway for a paycheck. He said that, and I've led this. Many people have said, hey, I'll go work for you. You give me equity in the deal. You give me equity in the deal. You give me equity in the deal. Or they give away stock. Which is really stupid if somebody wants that. No, build your own equity in your own deal, dude. Like, you don't have to build equity in my deal unless you want to write me a master check for the value that I have. I see people right now, they're like, we make $50 million in business and we do all this other type of stuff. And I go, okay, what's your EBITDA? Right? All right, well, we do 20 million. And now how much stock you be giving away? 60% of it. I'm still the majority shareholder, but I'm like, okay, well, so you're not worth shit. Right? So you would have done the same thing as you would have done, except you gave away your business. It's the dumbest thing everybody does is when they're starting out, in order to lure people in, they want to give them stock. Lure people in on your value proposition. Never give anybody stock unless they're willing to write you a massive check for that stock. Anybody who gives up a piece of their business, particularly in a startup, right, in financial services, is just doesn't get it. And that's a big takeaway for me. I never gave up $1 of the stock. Well, I did, but they gave me a check, right? And it was a life-changing check. And the next one's going to be 3 times the size of the first one. And then they still owe me more it's a complete, it's a completely different phase. But, if I had to cut that check up into, you know, divide by 5, man, that would have been stupid.
Yeah.
And those are the life lessons you look backwards with those Jenga blocks and you're like, damn, that was a key thing in my life that I took. And the second thing he said is you never want to be a minority shareholder in a privately held company without voting stock, because basically you get screwed. You work forever and somebody will screw you by diluting the shares and you'll get nothing out of that deal. Right. Or whatever they decide to pay you in that scenario. So those are two things that, everybody says, well, come in and I'll give you this and you could take my stock and, blah, 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 blah. It's like, and and sometimes that works out for people. I'm not saying that's not a good thing for some folks. But when you're just going to you want to put a lens on that filter when you're making those types of decisions when it comes to financial services, right? Being an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Love
One of
it.
the things I'm taking away from this conversation is you're very consistent with your beliefs and like steadfast in what you're good at. You double down on what you're great at. You double down on your beliefs as far as we don't give away equity. Value is everything. Can you talk a little bit more about like where you developed that belief in yourself and the value to make sure that you were, you held to those decisions?
Yeah, well, it was those times, right? When my wife called me a pussy, John Gant saying, don't give up stock in your company from a guy that he's a billionaire today. Those are the things that never be a minority shareholder of a, private company. Those are things that you listen to people who've been there and have done that. Most people don't listen there and done that, right? So when you're starting out, you're like, great, you could be part of this and we're going to make it bigger and so stop, right? You'll regret that someday. You know what I'm saying? Like that is a decision. What you could have said is, we're going to be something great. I'm going to make you a VP. You're going to be a president of this company. You can make millions of dollars a year. They're still going to say yes to that, just like they would have the stock. The difference is you're going to make them very rich at the expense of yourself. Isn't really a good idea in hindsight. Ask anybody that has given it up. And I know people like this today that are like, shit, I give away half my company. So I have to work to build it twice as much to get anywhere close to where you got. That's a lot more work, takes a lot more
That's
time
right.
to
Yeah.
cash it out. I see this happening all the time in the Ameriprise system. These people are not smart. They're trying to, and Ameriprise is pumping this because it's only good for Ameriprise. They want you to give like an ESOP to your firm. I'm like, why would you give stock and ownership on something that you built, right, to your employees that don't write you a check? That just makes no sense to me. So these things are just not the mind of an entrepreneur, right? They're just not thinking of it right. And a lot of entrepreneurs, candidly, don't get this. They make mistakes in this all the time. Now, if it's a tech company and you're losing money and you're raising capital, you have to give stock because you're losing money. But if
Right.
you're a proper profitable organization with EBITDA, right? Why are you giving my stock?
Yeah.
I think that
Um, go
great
ahead.
transition there, I think, actually, Martin, because we've talked a lot about stock and what it's worth. Can you talk about what you've learned about values and valuations along this road?
Oh yeah. Oh man, if I only knew today what I knew before, the damn, this is crazy. The business is just doesn't understand what the private equity world wants with your business. They don't, and they define it very differently. Um, the industry thinks like trailing 12, like, oh, give me 3 times trailing 12 of my rolling and then recurring and then 1 times my blah blah blah, which is awesome um, for the private equity firm, right? So here's what I've learned today, and what has the biggest amounts of valuation. So the largest amount of that evaluation is something called a platform, right? So what a private equity firm really wants is a platform. I'm a platform. No producer makes a difference in our business other than we love them and we want them to help us bring in revenue. But we have 575 of them running around. AUM doesn't matter. It's not it doesn't change anything on there, right? Revenue and EBITDA is what matters. Is it consistent? Is it growing? And they don't really care if it's AUM or not. They don't put a different tag on it. They put a tag on it if it's a platform. So there's a recent announcement. You heard of Lido Advisors, right? I don't know if Lido is one of my good friends works at Lido, and they just acquired by BlackRock. And I think the multiple, I don't know, is like 22 times, right?
Wow.
Is the multiple, or 17 times or something like that. And the reason that it's so high isn't because it's AUM business. It's because it's going to go on forever in perpetuity, regardless of the principles of the organization. It's big enough. What I've learned is that the lower the more you keep of the revenue that you do, the lower your valuation. I'll just give you an example for that. So let's assume I'm $1 million GDC producer, right? And I don't really invest. I have one staff and I have an office, and I make $900,000 a year, right? Or $800,000 a year. So there's no little investments, and I'm not growing that much. That practice in the EBITDA space, in the private equity space, is worth probably 8 times EBITDA. And they're going to give you a discount on that EBITDA because they're going to pay somebody to replace you. So they're going to discount your EBITDA. So it's probably a $5-6 million practice, which is where that 3 times revenue type of thing comes from, right? You take that same practice, that same person, and say, let's assume they're doing 5 million, just to keep things simple, and their EBITDA, right, is 2.5 million, and they've grown by 30% per year, and they have 5 advisors, and they have staff and infrastructure. Well, that business is worth 10 to 12 times the EBITDA, right? So the ideal sweet spot in the private equity space is somewhere between a 30 to 50% margin, a 15% growth over the periods of time, and no one person matters in terms of the infrastructure. So now you get to that $10 million number, right? And then you've got a $5 million EBITDA, and you've got $5 million of expenses, right? But you have a marketing department, you've got 10 advisors underneath you, you've got all this infrastructure, you've got new business and compliance, and you've got a finance director, and you've got all of this stuff going. Well, now that business is worth 15 to 17 times its EBITDA.
Wow.
So, so from my perspective, I'm like, great, I'll go buy you at 3 times all day long. So the private equity firm goes, I'll just take that because I'm a platform, right? So I buy you at 3 times your EBITDA or 8 times your EBITDA. I'm selling that in my business for 17 to 22 times my EBITDA. And that's the lie out there. That's what financial advisors don't know. They think of themselves as practitioners, not business owners. They don't think of themselves. I used to say, AmeriLife just told me we don't buy practices, we buy businesses. And I was like, well, what's the difference between a practice and a business? And they didn't know the answer to that. Well, the reality is they buy practices. Those are businesses. They just don't know they don't speak the same language, right? But the valuations are the same. The second thing that's really dumb about this stuff, is there's the entity value. And I'll tell you, one of the good decisions we made, we went affiliated with an IBD, and we got fired from one IBD called Persh Kaplan Sterling because, we're a startup company. I'm good friends with people, and I send really terrible emails to them, and they review my emails, and they were like, you can imagine what that looks like. And so they called me up one day and they said, hey man, we don't like your business model, and you send really lewd emails to your people, and that's not part of our values. So I'm like, well, what are you talking about? These are like friends of mine. It's like me telling Martin he's a pussy. Like, who cares, right? They're not offended in any way, shape, or form. They say, we don't care. We don't want your business. So I go to a company called IFS. And IFS, I say, you can't touch, my insurance business, right? My RIA is my RIA. I'll do variable annuity business with you. They say, sure, that's fine. Well, they find out how much, something feels wrong about this business to me, this IBD. So I start looking to buy a broker dealer. And I buy a shell broker dealer that's basically a limited use BD called Trinity Wealth Securities. Long story short, IFS realizes I do about at that time, maybe 80 million in EIA premium, and says, well, we don't want your business because you're not giving us any of it. So you either give it to us or you're fired. And I just got to tell you, I will never give it you one fucking dime of my EIA business. I'm not going to run through you. So I transferred at the time, it was like 60 reps over to Trinity Wealth Securities. And then we went through the CMA process and purchased it. It was the best decision I've ever made because it's true independence, right? So I deal with regulators all the time and all that stuff. They're the easiest, nicest people to deal with, way better than a compliance idiot at Mass Mutual, right? Fool. Like these people are, they're literally fools. There's nothing wrong with FINRA and the SEC if you follow the rules, but they're not making up rules to protect the brand. You get to make those decisions. And all of the mystery associated with, oh, it's so hard to run a compliance program is a lie. It's a lie that they want you to believe. So
Yeah,
therefore,
it's a lie to perpetuate why you need them and you don't, right?
you don't need them. It's way easier. What you do is you hire a nice consulting firm. We have a company out of Boca Raton. I was introduced them by FINRA, right? They're literally they write all my written supervised procedures. They respond to the regulators. They're the guy used to work at FINRA. They do all the audits. They're the nicest people on the entire planet. They are amazing at what they do. I pay them I consider it to be not a lot of money for what it is. And we run the cleanest shop. We had our last FINRA audit. Mind you, we have, three at that time, the last FINRA was a couple years ago. At the time, we had maybe 400 reps, 380 reps in 18 states. Not one finding, zero findings.
Love it.
Like literally zero. And if I had Kathy Sweet audit me, right, I would have 1,000 findings because she was making shit up. Interpreting the rule.
It's so true though. But the internal, we've all seen that. The internal pieces, to your point, like they're literally rules made up by the company to just say, well, this is what we want.
Well,
So
and the internal compliance officer has to, provide value for her job, right? So the more
we got to
findings she
catch
has, the
stuff.
more important she is.
Yeah.
The self-importance of corporate culture.
That's
That's
exactly
right.
right. And you know
That's
what
right.
I find fascinating, and what I would tell anybody at Ameriprise, as an example, or a Mass Mutual, you don't own shit. Read your contract, right? So when you don't own shit, when they say literally in your franchise agreement that you don't own your business, that we do, you're allowed to operate inside of it and be entrepreneurial inside of our model. You've discounted the value on the street. So the sooner you come to grips with that, the sooner you will actually unlock the valuation of your business, right? And the sooner you understand investing in your business to get a 50% margin, as opposed to trying to keep 90% of the revenue, is going to increase the valuation for you in the future, the better off you're going to be.
All right, let me ask you. Go for it. One of the question I want to ask you: if you're a $2 million advisor with 2-3 staff members on an independent broker-dealer platform, what's next?
What's next? Well, first of all, so BD means different things to different people, right? So if you're a BD producer, meaning that you're doing AUM on an IBD platform, is the dumbest thing in the whole entire planet. So what I would do is I would open my own RIA. I would sign a clearing firm, go to Schwab, go to Fidelity, I would open my own RIA, and I would get 100% payout. I'd hire a TAMP to do the stuff that they do, Orion, Black Diamond, negotiate what that stuff is. Now I own my entity, right? I am the business owner on a platform perspective. Now I have true independence, right? The second thing that I would do is I would begin to make sure that I would begin with the end in mind of evaluation, right? So if I was a $2 million producer and I was 40 years old, what I would try to figure out is how do I get that thing to like 10 or $12 million with a 50% margin? Now I'm worth 17 times to 20 times from a sale perspective. It's worthy of your greatest efforts. I think everybody thinks, when you are the business, you basically create a job for yourself. Don't create a job for yourself. create an exit for yourself. It doesn't matter if you're getting 90 points, if you're getting 3 times revenue, right? Whereas if you're investing and growing and you get a 50%, but you're getting 17 to 22, you take your cash flow times your exit. The exit's more, the exit will become more important to you if you're smart. It should be more important to you. I say to my guy all the time today. So I own 60% of my company. My next check is 3 times what my first check was. Right. My first check was life changing. Right. So I fly private. I have a car collection. I live in the house of my dreams. I have everything that I could possibly imagine. Marty knows, right? Everything in there. You really got to think to yourself, how do I get an exit? All right. And how do I maximize the value of my exit by knowing what games and rules you're trying to play for to begin with? You'd never want to be an advisor if you want a big exit that's meeting with clients on a weekly or daily basis. You want to have advisors that are doing that for you. You never want to be somebody who gets lazy, meaning that you're not growing your business by 20% a year, because the private equity firms don't want that, because they have to answer to a shareholder. And it's no more work, zero more work to grow a business that way than it is to not grow a business that way.
It's just different work.
It's just different work.
It's strategic work. It's back end work. It's the processes, and I think you see that on a daily basis with advisors we meet with, who we have this conversation. And well, are you an advisor or are you a business owner? And it's a very, very different conversation with them on a daily basis about what they're trying to accomplish, and not only that, but how they see their business and how they move their business.
Well, everybody, when I say I own Florida Financial Advisors, automatically thinks I'm a financial advisor, and I say I have to explain to them, I'm an operator. I'm not a financial advisor. So I operate a business that gives a platform for financial advisors to have wide levels of success, right? I don't say I'm an entrepreneur. That sounds like you're unemployed.
I'm an artist.
I'm an actor.
Stand-up comedian.
I was just going to say, try actor, comedian, see how that goes.
Right. And what I say to people is I'm a really good operator, right?
Yeah.
That's all I am, is an operator of a business today. The business runs itself, but I have to set the direction and the tone and the finances and the clients and the sales and the training and the recruiting and everything else. I still have to operate the business. But it's a business. It's not a practice. And the first thing, once you just put that frame on your head, that's completely different, right? I run a business. I am the CEO of a company, and we need to operate this business in such a way that we take discretion out of the operating level. So therefore, the systems and processes that align in order to be able to consistently predict your outcomes on a weekly, monthly, quarterly basis. It's just like you were a publicly held company, a publicly traded company, is a different mindset. Is there any difference in the job? No.
Right.
The job's the same. I sell the same products, the same services everybody else does, but it's the way you approach it changes, and because the way you approach it changes, so does everything else from a valuation perspective.
Yeah, I love it. Well, hey man, I'm gonna get us out of here. We might have 2 episodes in this one. So one, thank you, Jay. Appreciate you
thank
coming
you.
on, man. Very, very, very happy for you and your success. It's well deserved, man. You took a big risk about 8 years ago, right? After being called a nasty. But you did all that, and I think you had a vision. You were very clear. You had some life lessons along the way to get you to that point, but you still did it, and you still took the risk, and then committed to your vision. And it's awesome to see it pay off, man. So kudos to you, dude. Congrats.
Well, and if I could say anything, a pitch, and Marty, I said this to you. Anybody who listens to this who's like, damn, I would like to learn, if I learned something and say, do something, well, come to us through these guys. Right. So, we still recruit, train, and develop. Although I don't want any whiny person who writes 500,000 thinks their shit don't stink, and even $1 million at that point. But if you're $1 million producer and you want to sell for 17 to 22 times, or if you're a $2 million producer and you want to go to 70, 80 million, and you want to learn from us in doing that, go to them. be recruited, come to our platform, and I'll teach you how to do it. I'm an open book when it comes to the stuff for the right type of person that has a growth mindset, that wants to be better, that don't think they have their shit figured out, right? Like that, those people need not apply. I know shit that I forgot most of the stuff that you'll never know for the people that you're talking to that is out there. And I'm not trying to be braggadocious or be a jerk about it, but the scorecard is our net worth and our business ability to grow. And unless you've done what we have done, you don't know how to do it. If you want to learn how to do it, come to us. So I want to know something. Eric, did you learn something today? What'd you learn today?
I'll learn a lot always. I think this was one of my favorite episodes actually so far because as I'm sitting here, my mind's turning with a lot of things. One of the things, obviously, is the valuation piece. I think that's a really interesting piece and how the private equity firms view a business. I don't think I completely comprehended that, and I'm really excited about being able to implement that in our own business as well as helping advisors implement that in their business. So, really grateful for that insight and that piece of advice there, Jason.
Marty, what'd you learn today?
Well, valuation was huge but that's technical. I mean, I think to me, I'd go 30,000 feet. It's you stepped into saying, I've done this for other people in all these different versions. How do I create my own version? Same business, different mindset, different tactical approach. I'll absorb the risk. I won't give away equity, but man, am I going to hustle pretty hard for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And as long as I start seeing a little light there, it's not done, but you're on your way, and you were on your way. I mean, you just did it super fast.
Yeah.
But I still think that it was so much about up here, to your point. And it's my story of coming back to the business is why you and I continue to talk and all this. It's like I'm in the earlier version of that for myself because I'm like, where's my place in this, or what am I trying to create or build? Because I'm blank slate too, in a sense, right? You taught me early on how to work within a corporate box, and I followed your mentorship on that, and it worked, right? You remember that. I was asking you our playbook, and I just took all these things you laid out for me. It protected me in San Diego. It helped me then turn that place around, and I wouldn't have known how to do all that stuff. So, but then you took it to the next level, what you did 8 years ago, and you broke out saying, yeah, I don't need that shell because why play their game? I'm going to play my own game.
Yeah.
So that to me is the biggest thing, having followed you and, like we're buddies anyways, but when we talk business, like I'm always learning your thought process on stuff because I just think it's fascinating that you make what you did could seem very complicated, and hearing you talk about it, you make it sound so simple. Not easy, but you make it sound so simple.
Yeah, it is. It is simple. It's not easy, but it is simple. If you actually follow the right recipe, you'll get the right meal out of it, right? The problem is most people don't know the recipe, right? So in order to know that, I always say you're only as good as the team you play for. If you're an A player, you play on a C team, you're still a C player in the business, right?
That's right.
And in our world today, the only way for you to really, get A results from there is to not be where they are today. And I can't shake people enough. Like, you kidding me? Like, just stop. Like, just
Yeah.
pick your head up for 1 second. And I think part of it is, they go, well, I'm not you, meaning me, which is giving me way too much credit because I'm not nothing special. And Marty, you know that I'm just a knucklehead kid from New Bedford. Pot smoking college dropout. He's been fired from every job that he's had. But the
Yeah.
experience has been my teacher. And what I know is what I think most people need to know in order to make good decisions. Right. So, hey, I'll sign a contract with you guys. If you find the right person who's like, okay, I want something bigger, right? I can help them get there. But for the right type of person, most of these whiny veteran people that would talk about, what are you going to do for me? That's not the person that would be a good fit for us. But the one that says, I want to learn from you and grow from you, that's a person that I will help get to the promised land in short order if they take direction, I'll open it up for them and teach them how to do it.
Jason, if people want to find you online or on social media, where can they find you?
You know what's fun? The good news, bad news, Eric, is my last name is Mickool, right? And it's a made up name from Ellis Island. It doesn't really exist in the world. There's only one Jason Mickool, spelled Mickool, on the whole planet,
Love it. So
right?
just
So
pop that in the Google machine and see
you
what it
just
spits
Google
out.
Jason Mickool. You can have my phone number. You can see everything there is. Every good porn where everything I've ever done. It's very, very simple.
That's
Um,
awesome.
but
Well,
and
hey
Marty,
man, cool. Thanks for doing it, brother. We really appreciate you, man. A lot of insight, a lot of wisdom. I mean, this was awesome, dude. And
This is great.
we'll all see each other on the golf course, and I'm sure I'll probably win. So we'll leave it at that.
Bye guys, thank you.
All right, guys.
All right,
Thank you.
you good, man.